Hello, you guys, and welcome to the show. My name is Rob, or at one point I was called Sideshow Bob, with my friend Nervous Jared for a while, and here I am kind of starting my own little show, I guess you could say. And unfortunately, one of the topics that we're going to kind of get to is more of a political topic. I usually try to stay away from politics because it arouses too many people and it gets too many people angry. But I am going to get on the topic of politics here in just a second. So, one of the things that we have in the news is the recent events over the weekend where we have a mass shooting once again here in the United States. And it's unfortunate that we have to deal with another one of these situations. So I would like to send my full-hearted condolences out to those families who have lost somebody in the recent mass shootings here in the United States. So first off, I would like to start off with that. It's a very somber time here in this country. It's a very difficult time here in this country as we approach yet another United States election coming up in a little over a year. We will have another presidential election, and obviously heated debates are heating up on both sides of the aisle, both in the Democratic Party and the Republican Party within the Republican Party. And obviously, the fighting back and forth between both parties, causing separation, not only in our government itself, but also separation amongst the people. So, where I'm getting to is the recent events over the weekend, the mass shooting. The first thing that comes out of one particular party's mouth is, you guessed it, gun laws and gun reform. That is the tell-all, end-all solution to our problems that we have here in the United States. To be completely honest with you, that is not the solution. In fact, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and it's coming up front, very first, very formal, very maybe brash to some people. But as a person sitting on the left, at this particular point in time, you should not be focused on changing gun laws or trying to abolish the Second Amendment that we have in the United States. What you should be using this for, if you're a smart congressman or smart congresswoman, this should be your platform to push for a universal healthcare system. And here is why. Because at the end of the day, the gun is not the one that made the decision to fire off its ammunition at innocent people. The gun is not the one who made the decision to wake up that morning and go, hey, I'm going to go to my local Walmart and shoot as many people as I possibly can in a short period of time. The gun is not the one that did that. The person that woke up that morning did. That person made a premeditated decision potentially weeks ago to make this heinous crime happen. So when you're talking about blaming guns, blaming gun violence for this potential terrible situation that happened, it was a terrible situation. There's no way around it. But when you talk about blaming guns for this situation, in all honesty, it's not going to resolve anything. In all honesty, it's not going to make anything better. What I can tell you is that we have an issue here where people dealing with depression, people dealing with high amounts of stress, people that may not have been able to cope with stressful situations or terrible events that have happened in their lives, or dare I say it, but people that have broken homes, people that grew up in a broken home, maybe that is part of the issue that we have here. These people have mental instability. They wake up and they say that I want to do a terrible thing to innocent people that had absolutely nothing to do with my current situation, but I'm going to take my anger out on them, and I'm going to do it in the most violent way possible. That's what happened. That's what went through their head. And they used a tool that we've had around for centuries to do these heinous crimes. Can a gun be used as a tool of warfare? Yes, but it can also be used as a tool to put food on the table. It can also be used as a deterrent against tyranny and oppression. A gun is a multifaceted tool, but that's exactly what it is. It's a tool. It's a tool like a screwdriver. I mean, obviously a little bit more extreme, and I know that some of you will make that comment, I'm sure, but it's a tool that can be used to benefit your life in some sort of way. But that's exactly what it is. A gun is no different than using a knife. Ask those people that live in the UK about knife crime, particularly in the area around London. Talk about knife crimes. It's to the point where in that country they're talking about banning knives. I mean, you want to talk about California being extreme for banning straws or banning plastic bags. That I can almost understand. But when you're talking about banning knives, and I'm not talking about like tactical knives, you know, like the folding knives that you can get that, you know, people use for fishing or hunting or whatever. I'm not talking about those type of knives. I'm talking about just regular knives, because maybe over there they don't have access to tactical knives either. But what they do is they take a regular kitchen knife and they'll go down the street and they'll start stabbing people. You know, that type of crime is dare I say it, but it's almost inevitable. Inevitably, bad people do bad things. Bad people will commit a crime no matter how difficult you make it. I mean, look at the technology that we have today to help deter bank robberies and convenience store robberies, when you have these security cameras and all of these things to help deter theft, and yet it still happens. It still happens on a daily basis. People still go into convenience stores and rob convenience stores, or try to rob a bank, or steal stuff from a local retail store. It happens on a daily basis. We have all this technology to deter it, and yet it still happens. We put all these laws and regulations to help these companies deter these bad situations, and yet here we are. It still happens on a daily basis. So putting more laws and regulations on guns is not the solution. And if you're on the left, if you're leaning left, you shouldn't be looking at what can we do to ban guns. Let's face it, you're going to fight a huge uphill battle with a lot of millions of gun owners. Some of them are even voters that vote for the Democratic side, or for somebody that's more of a leftist point of view. That's what we have here. That's what we're getting at. We're getting at a terrible situation and a very bad uphill battle for somebody that's on the left, trying to fight gun owners that are on both sides of the fence. But rather than using guns and saying, what can we do to ban guns? Can we use this to ban guns? As I've reiterated before, a person made a decision. A person that is obviously stressed, that is having problems with their lives, that has a hatred for someone or something. Something caused them to have this divine hatred for human beings, for human life. That right there is enough to say this is a mental health issue. And democratic policy, democratic ideology over the past at least 10 years has been, what can we do to get health care for all? What can we do to get health care for every American citizen, to make the American way of life better, to help people live healthier lives, both mentally and physically? What can we do? Universal health care. That's what we've wanted. We've wanted health care for all. And using these events, rather than fighting guns, you should use these events to help support your policy for universal health care. I mean, it truly is simple as that. Use this policy to create more passion for a universal healthcare system. Get it so that these people that are struggling every single day to cope with these terrible situations, get them the help they need. Get them the access that we deserve. But I'm not seeing that right now. What I'm seeing is bantering back and forth between Democrats and Republicans all over social media, over news networks, over every platform you could possibly render. And nobody is thinking about, hey, our goal has always been universal health care. Rather than fighting that uphill battle of trying to abolish the Second Amendment, which is going to be a damn near impossible task anyways. You should be focusing on universal health care. What can we do to get universal health care approved across America? And what are the benefits of it? What if we had gotten this young man or young woman the health care, the mental health care that they needed when they were crying out for help, when all the signs were there? What did we do to help them? We didn't do anything. But what could we do? From this point forward, we can't look back. We can't change the past now. Unfortunate as that may sound, and as harsh as that may sound. But let these people's lives not die in vain. If you want to use these events for change, use it for something that is obtainable. Use this as a reason as to why we need universal health care. Use this as a reason as to why we would benefit from having a healthcare system that will help with mental health, that will help with people cope with these situations that are better. Rather than trying to enforce a policy that is going to be such a huge uphill battle that you're going to get pushback from your own current voters to people that are opposing on the opposite side of the aisle. Because let's face it, there are Democratic voters that are gun owners as well. You know, it's not all, you know, redneck gun-toting Republicans that are gun owners. There's a lot of Democrats out there that are also gun owners as well, and you need to realize that. So you're not affecting the votes that are within your own party, because let's face it, if you ban guns and you've got your own Democratic voters that are not on board with it, you lose those votes. They're going to vote the other way. So what can we do to enforce a policy that everybody can agree on? Let's look at healthcare. What can we do to resolve healthcare? What can we do to get these people the help that they need? That's the first food for thought here. The second is how are we helping the situation? Are we as a society really helping the situation? Because we're really separating ourselves more and more every single day. We separate ourselves from our neighbors, from our friends, from our peers. We separate ourselves every single day. You know, a statistic that I had read the other day is a very interesting one, that because of social media, if you look at statistics over the past 15 years, the amount of people spending time with their friends has drastically decreased. In particular, in the white communities. In particular, in the white communities. I know that may sound strange, but it's a very, very important article when you really think about it. There was a couple of universities that did this study, and I'll have to pull it back up here in a little bit. But it was a very interesting read that you saw that as social media has taken over our lives, people started isolating themselves more and more. We stopped hanging out with one another. We stopped going out and having good times and doing these things, fun things with each other and getting away. In particular, in the white community. That the studies had shown that in African American communities and Hispanic communities, that they still had a sense of community. That people still went to church or they went to a community center and almost at least once a week kind of had some sort of communal bond with each other within their communities, whether people had a cookout in their neighborhood or within their general communities, or they went to church together and after that they had a big lunch on Sunday or whatever. But there was a sense of community. There's a sense of community within the African American and the Hispanic community that doesn't exist anymore within the white community. And I hate pulling race into it. I really hate pulling race into it. I really do, because I feel that we are all Americans. I feel that it doesn't matter the color of your skin or what you believe in. We're all Americans. We all have our own rights to our own beliefs. We have our own rights to our own freedoms, our own religions, our own speech. It doesn't matter what color you are. We all have the same ability to get a good education. But I find it astonishing that in white communities, the statistical rate of suicide drastically increases, particularly within white males. But the rate of suicide increases drastically in white communities. Homicide also increases. But the biggest difference was a sense of community, and I found that absolutely astonishing. I found that absolutely amazing. That the sense of community when within African American and Hispanic or even Asian communities is that they spend more time with each other, they're more neighborly, they get to know each other better than in white communities. Why is that? Why is it that we isolate ourselves from each other? We also don't get out and go to social events as much as we used to, statistically speaking, according to this data that I've found. And again, it's a statistical sample. It's not set in stone. I mean, obviously there could be differences in different locations, but statistically speaking, what separates us? And that correlates back to mental health. Because when you have that sense of community, you have somebody to talk to, you have somebody to lean on, you also have a way of allowing your mind to escape reality, to escape negativity that is being fed to us minute by minute every single day, especially since we're connected to the internet the way that we are today, constantly at our fingertips. It's not like it used to be. Problems at work, bullying, all of those things all play a role. But having that sense of community really does make a difference. It really does make you feel more confident that you have people behind you and you'll be there for them. But it doesn't have that anymore. People within white communities, we don't have that. We've walked away from it. We've stepped away from that. It's awful to think about. I mean, when you really deep down inside, when you think about it, it's awful to think about. But it all makes sense. If you don't have a way of escape, you tend to let these things fester inside your mind. And the same goes for when you have an issue at work. A lot of times us as humans, doesn't matter what race you are, us as humans, you tend to take that work-related incident that really stressed you out and you take it out on your significant other or somebody at home, whether it's your kids, whether it's your wife, whether it's your mom, doesn't matter who it is. You tend to take out those stressors on the people that you love. Because we don't have any other way to vent those feelings. It all correlates back to each other. It all correlates back to mental health. And what can we do to make ourselves better? These stressors, these hatred, these vile things that are being spread across all platforms, that are being fed to us every single day. And some people have the capabilities of being able to decipher what is good and what is bad and what is trash and what is actually noteworthy. Some people have those capabilities and then some don't. We can also look at broken homes, kids, especially these young kids that are making these brash decisions to do these heinous crimes. We can look back at those and we can say, are these kids growing up in a broken home? Were they brought up without the love and attention that a child deserves? Or were they just brought up with hatred and violence? So honestly, these are all things that we need to think about in a situation like this. It's a tough situation. It truly is. I don't like it just as much as anybody else. But we have to look at this situation rationally. We can't look at this as irrational. We can't start putting the blame on one another because there's millions of gun owners out there that are law-abiding citizens that have never had an inkling of even using their firearm, regardless of the type, whether it's an AR-15 or a revolver or a pistol, semi-automatic pistol of some sort. It doesn't matter. They have never had an inkling of using their firearm against another human being. There's also a lot of people that can cope with stressors a heck of a lot better than others. Either way, we have to look at this rationally. We have to look at this situation in the most rational way possible. We can't just keep pushing blame when we need to find solutions. And the solution is not banning firearms. As proven by other countries, that is not a solution. Countries like the UK, countries like Australia, countries like Japan. It's proven that those are not solutions to the problem. But even is universal health care, is that the solution? I don't know. Because I look at the UK and I say that they have universal health care, and yet they still have stabbings that happen. So I don't know if universal health care is the solution. I think at the end of the day, that it doesn't matter what situation, what laws you pass. At the end of the day, bad people are going to do bad things. It's inherent in human nature that we adapt and overcome to every situation that is given to us. So if that means that we have to adapt to new laws, new regulations, the way that we don't have access to one thing, we'll have access to another thing. I look back in history and I say, hey, Timothy McVeigh did not need a gun to kill all those people in Oklahoma City. He needed some chemicals in a truck. I look back at times like September 11th. There was no firearms there. And I know that there's going to be theories on September 11th anyways, but there was no firearms there. So guys that took over an airplane using box cutters, again, knives, hey, look at that, that took over hijacked airplanes, flew them into the World Trade Center, and flew them into the Pentagon. There were no guns that day that killed anybody. No matter what the conspiracy theories are, there's no guns. There's always a will, there will always be a way for bad people to do bad things to innocent human beings. There will always be a way. Unfortunately, we have a situation where mass shootings involving firearms has drastically increased. And unfortunately, that's a scapegoat. Because I don't think the firearm is the problem. I think it's the person that holds the firearm. And we need to find solutions, and we need to find real solutions. So the final thought is, do we deal with mental health, which inevitably is the real problem, depression, anxiety, things of that nature, or do we focus on inanimate objects, and do we keep pressing regulation against inanimate objects to the point where, much like the UK, we're considering banning knives? I think we need to confront the issue head on. And that's my final thought. I want to thank you guys for listening in. If you like the show, I will continue on making it, and hope you guys enjoyed.